Have you ever wondered, if you were King Solomon, the wisest and wealthiest man in Israel, would you always make the right decisions? Or would you also make the same mistakes he did? Solomon, one of Israel's legendary kings. Wisdom, wealth, and power. He had it all. But behind that glory lies a sad story that few know. In this video, we will explore the glorious yet tragic life of Solomon, along with the valuable lessons his story offers. What will you learn from his mistakes? This story will change the way you view power and wisdom. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Lego Bible Adventures so you don't miss out on more valuable lessons from faith stories. 15 years old and already bearing the weight of an entire kingdom? Can you believe it? That person was King Solomon. After King David's death, Israel fell into chaos due to the lack of a clear successor. The nation needed a strong leader. Solomon was not the eldest son, but thanks to the prophet Nathan, he was chosen to be king. At just 15 years old, Solomon had to face power struggles. Everyone looked to him, placing their hopes in his leadership abilities. What was the first thing Solomon did upon ascending to the throne? It wasn't power nor wealth. He prayed to God, asking for wisdom to lead Israel and to guide the kingdom into a new chapter, one that would be prosperous, good, and flourishing. His prayer was answered. God granted him remarkable wisdom. Solomon, the young king in royal attire, with his shining scepter, became a symbol of hope. Yet behind that exterior, Solomon was a man burdened with complex thoughts. When Solomon ascended to the throne, Israel was facing tremendous challenges. His father, King David, had passed away, leaving behind a powerful empire but one rife with internal strife and external enemies. These forces were constantly threatening to divide the kingdom. However, Solomon was determined not to retreat. One night in a dream, God appeared to Solomon and asked,
"What do you want me to give you?"
Solomon did not ask for power or wealth. Instead, he prayed for wisdom to make sound decisions and save Israel from chaos. God granted him immense wisdom, making Solomon the wisest king to ever rule. Shortly after, Solomon proved his wisdom through a famous case. Two women came to him, disputing over a child. Both of these women claimed to be the child's mother. Solomon rendered his judgment.
"Divide the child in two, and each of you shall have half."
Upon hearing this, the real mother pleaded,
"Please, my lord, do not kill the child. Give him to her."
And that was how Solomon identified the true mother. Upon hearing of Solomon's reputation, Queen Sheba decided to test him. She brought not only difficult questions but also clever, subtle riddles. However, these challenges did not trouble Solomon. He answered each question with ease, leaving Sheba astounded. As a result, she gifted him priceless treasures to acknowledge the greatness of the king. Solomon was also a great builder. He was determined to construct the temple in Jerusalem. With the help of King Hiram, the project was completed after 7 years. The temple became a marvel, a symbol of a prosperous and mighty Israel. Neighboring nations looked on with awe and respect. Under Solomon's reign, Israel flourished. He expanded the borders, developed trade, and the people of Israel lived in peace. loving him for his fairness and boundless wisdom. But as people praised Solomon, whispers began to circulate.
King Solomon is truly wise, but who dares to point out when he is wrong?
His confidence grew, and it was this very confidence that would lead him to make a series of mistakes he didn't even realize. In the early years of his reign, Solomon earned the respect of his people. But as the kingdom grew stronger, he felt the need to solidify his power. One of the decisions he made was to marry several princesses from neighboring countries. Solomon believed these marriages would maintain peace for Israel and strengthen diplomatic ties with surrounding nations. As a result, Israel would prosper even more. At first, the people of Israel strongly supported this. They believed their king was not only wise but also had a far-reaching vision, knowing how to maintain peace without resorting to war. But what no one noticed, or dared to speak of, was that each of these princesses brought with them their own beliefs and deities. And then something unprecedented began to appear on the hills surrounding Jerusalem. New temples slowly rising, magnificent yet foreign. Temples to the gods Moloch, Baal, and Ashtoreth began to take root in a landscape that had once belonged solely to the God of Israel. Solomon, who had once been praised for his unwavering devotion to God, now found himself in a situation where his actions began to stray from that path. But now, he was the first to allow these constructions to arise, merely to please the foreign queens. The people began to murmur, but the prosperity Solomon brought to the kingdom kept them silent for a time. Within the palace, scenes of luxury continued. Lively feasts, princesses glowing in their sparkling gowns, and Solomon sitting on his throne with a calm expression. Each time he took a new wife, he viewed it as a wise move to strengthen Israel's position. But what no one dared to say was the growing sense of unease among the people, a feeling that things were starting to go off course. The whispers began as mere curiosity.
Why would the king build temples for other gods?
Perhaps just to please his queen? But gradually, these questions turned into a deep concern. Could this anger God? Is there anyone brave enough to remind the king? Despite this, Solomon remained calm, as if everything was still under his control. No one could deny Solomon's wisdom and strategic vision, but it was this excessive confidence that prevented him from realizing he was slowly drifting away from his original faith. The temple of God still stood proudly in Jerusalem, but surrounding it were numerous temples to other gods, a sign that pure faith was gradually being diluted. Strangely enough, each time Solomon took another wife, a small disruption would occur in the kingdom. A new temple would rise. An unfamiliar practice would creep into the life of Israel, and a small piece of the nation's faith would begin to waver. Yet it seemed that Solomon paid little attention. He still believed he was doing the right thing, that as long as Israel thrived and remained at peace, everything else didn't matter. Before long, what had once been whispers became a genuine concern. Many began to feel lost in their faith when they saw their king, once a symbol of wisdom and reverence for God, tolerating the presence of foreign deities. The unwavering faith that had once been so solid now began to show cracks. And then a profound lesson began to unfold within Israel. Not every plan, no matter how wise, leads to a positive outcome. Sometimes what we believe to be a safe strategy quietly pulls us away from the core values we once held dear. Solomon, with all his intelligence and vision, failed to realize that buying peace through compromising faith could lead to unforeseeable consequences. The kingdom still prospered, but deep within, a disturbance had already begun, an undercurrent that even the king could not fully see. Solomon had reached the peak of his power. The kingdom of Israel had become a mighty superpower, but within him, a sense of unease began to grow. Signs of weariness gradually became apparent. The marriages continued to bring him alliances with neighboring nations, but foreign religions slowly took hold. The faith of the Israelites weakened day by day, like a river being diverted, losing its original strength. Witnessing Solomon's betrayal of faith, God became very angry. Through the prophet Ahijah, he declared,
Israel would be divided.
However, the punishment would not come immediately. It would be delayed until after Solomon's death. At that time, his son would ascend to the throne, and the kingdom would officially be divided. The price for betrayal had already been set. No one could change it. After receiving the command from God, the prophet Ahijah went to meet Solomon. He warned the king about the serious consequences. Ahijah made it clear.
If Solomon did not return to God, if he continued to worship foreign gods, Israel would certainly be torn apart.
The kingdom Solomon had built would no longer be protected. Solomon listened to every word of the warning, but he remained calm, not the slightest bit concerned. In his heart, the prophecies were just empty words. He believed himself to be smart enough and powerful enough to control everything. He trusted that he was always in charge of the situation. There was nothing to fear. After the prophet Ahijah left, Solomon stood silently in the vast palace. He gazed out of the window with a distant look, as though pondering something. No one knew exactly what he was thinking. Perhaps he still told himself that everything was fine. Perhaps he thought the warning was just a passing breeze. But deep down, it's also possible that he was hiding a fear that the kingdom he had worked so hard to build would collapse. Overconfident in himself, Solomon ignored the warning. This story teaches us an important lesson. Always listen to sincere advice. It helps us improve every day. If we remain stubborn, we will fall into serious mistakes. And then all that will remain are the regrets that come too late. The prosperity Solomon had built began to show cracks. The kingdom of Israel remained wealthy and peaceful on the outside, but inside, discontent was quietly spreading. The people began to complain. Taxes were becoming heavier to sustain the lavish projects. The temple of God and the foreign temples now felt like a burden. On the crowded streets, sighs echoed.
Why are the taxes so high? By little swing. Where is all our money going?
The people no longer felt pride when they saw the magnificent temple or the grand palaces. Those constructions now only made their lives harder. Inside the palace, the atmosphere was heavy. Solomon, the once powerful and wise king, now appeared tired and helpless. The council had become a place of endless disputes. The officials were divided. Some wanted to tighten discipline, while others feared an uprising. Each meeting ended in frustration. No one was satisfied. Solomon sat still on his throne, his gaze heavy. his hand gripping the scepter tightly. He felt his power slipping away. His decisions were no longer supported as they once had been. The atmosphere in the palace grew increasingly tense. The courtiers, once fiercely loyal, were now starting to divide into factions. The conservatives wanted to maintain the status quo, while the reformers argued that change was necessary. Arguments erupted, making the air in the palace even heavier. One afternoon, Solomon was walking down the palace corridor. Suddenly, he encountered Jeroboam, once his right-hand man, always loyal. But this time, when Jeroboam saw Solomon, he quickly bowed his head and hurriedly walked away. Solomon paused, his brow furrowed. A strange feeling crept into his heart. Something was changing, and perhaps it was happening without his knowledge. At the same time, the people began to express their dissatisfaction. Anger was rising. What started as whispers soon grew louder.
Why is the king worshipping other gods? This is no longer the Israel we once knew.
Those questions quickly became public outcry. Small groups began to gather, whispering among themselves. Their gazes no longer held admiration, but only doubt and disappointment. The statues of foreign gods stood tall on the hilltops. They were symbols of Solomon's political ambitions. Now they had become a stark testament to the divisions within the nation.
"We used to worship only the Lord," an elderly man murmured in the corner of the marketplace. "But now, all we see are foreign gods. So, who is protecting us now?"
In the palace, Solomon felt the weight of pressure. He had once believed that wisdom and power would help Israel overcome any challenge. But now, he realized a harsh truth. These things could not replace the loyalty and faith of his people. Standing in the midst of the magnificent palace, Solomon looked up at the soaring dome. A trace of bitterness flickered in his eyes. He understood now. The collapse did not come from outside. It began with the cracks in the heart of his nation. As time passed, King Solomon's health began to decline. He still wore the crown, still appeared as a powerful and wise king. But inside, his body grew weaker. He felt lonely and powerless. The king, who had once been strong, renowned everywhere for his wisdom and power, now faced a loneliness he had never anticipated. In the palace, the noise from meetings and important decisions no longer brought him joy as it once did. The officials who had once been loyal now looked at him with different eyes. They began to gossip. They spoke of the weakening of the kingdom. They referred to Solomon's mistakes. The Temple of Jerusalem still stood in grandeur, but the kingdom of Israel was beginning to fall into instability. Solomon felt he no longer had the strength to sustain its prosperity any longer. Then one day, as the kingdom faced numerous troubles, a courtier approached him and whispered,
"My king, the temple is still standing, but the people are no longer happy."
Those words struck Solomon's heart like a dagger. They reminded him that Israeli society had changed too much, and he could no longer control it. Everything he had built was slowly losing its true value. The dreams in his heart were no longer enough to save the kingdom that was now crumbling. Solomon passed away quietly. There were no grand gatherings to honor him. The throne stood empty, and with his death, the kingdom of Israel entered a period of decline. The Temple of Jerusalem still stood there. It was a testament to a time of glory. But the people of Israel no longer held the same trust in the king they had once admired. The final scene before Solomon's departure was one of a kingdom divided. The mighty walls of Jerusalem, the grand structures he had once built. Now they were just relics of a bygone golden era. In his heart, Solomon came to understand a bitter truth. It wasn't the grand buildings or wealth that brought lasting stability. It was kindness, the fairness of a leader that truly mattered. The kingdom of Israel that Solomon had worked so hard to build began to crack and crumble. And the true legacy he left behind was only a lesson about arrogance, the consequences of forsaking faith. Though Solomon had once been a great king, in the end, he became a testament to decay. The decay of an empire when its leader loses compassion and turns away from God. How could someone as wise as Solomon make such serious mistakes? It was precisely because of the incredible wisdom God had granted him that Solomon was considered an ideal model of a leader. Yet in the end, he found himself amidst the crumbling of the very values he had once cultivated. What happened to such a great king? Although Solomon's wisdom was praised everywhere, his ambition and greed gradually clouded his judgment. At first, everything he did was for the growth and peace of the kingdom, marrying princesses, building the temple, expanding the territory. But then the ambition within him grew stronger. He began to place power and wealth above everything else. From a wise man, Solomon became a king who wanted everything: power, wealth, respect. He continued to marry wives, amass land, and gather riches. And he forgot one crucial thing that God had commanded.
You shall not worship other gods besides me.
As greed took hold of his heart, Solomon not only broke his covenant with God, but he also lost the goodness within himself. The decline of Solomon didn't happen suddenly. It was the result of many compounded wrong decisions over the years. His political marriages to foreign princesses initially brought prosperity. But then, with them, other religions began to infiltrate Israel. Solomon, once a king loyal to God, started to neglect his faith. Strange worship rituals began to appear. Gradually, small mistake piled up into a mountain of problems that he could no longer undo. We can see this clearly in the book of Ecclesiastes. Solomon himself claimed to be a man who had it all. But then he had to admit that it was all meaningless. His famous words,
Meaningless, meaningless, everything is meaningless,
were not just a reflection on his own life. They served as a warning to all of us. Material wealth and power will never bring true meaning if they are lacking in faith and justice. Amidst the glow of past glory, Solomon reflected on everything he had done. He came to a bitter realization. No matter how much power he held, he still couldn't control everything. Power had gradually pulled him away from God. And that distance had grown so wide, it could no longer be bridged. Surely, in the final moments of his life, Solomon must have wondered,
were all these achievements worth it when I lost kindness and humility?
Had he become so overconfident in his wisdom and power that he had forgotten the most important thing? Humility and faith in God? Great structures will eventually crumble. A glorious kingdom will inevitably fade. But humility and faith in God are the things that endure forever. The story of Solomon's downfall serves as a warning. It reminds us that power and wealth should not take precedence over everything. No matter how intelligent or powerful one may be, if greed takes control, we too will fall. The story of Solomon is not just a legend of a glorious kingdom. It is an important lesson about maintaining faith, humility, and staying true to moral values. And amid the faint light of his failure, one question echoes: are great achievements truly worth it if we cannot preserve goodness and love? The story of Solomon is not just a legend of a great king. It is also a valuable lesson about complacency and the price to pay when humility is lost. Solomon, with all the wisdom and power granted by God, built a mighty kingdom, a prosperous empire that everyone admired. But then ambition arose, pride grew stronger, greed flared up. All of it dragged him into downfall. Looking back at Solomon's journey, we realize one clear truth. No matter how intelligent you are, it's never enough. No matter how powerful or wealthy you become, it may not last. Without kindness and humility, every thought will eventually fade away. Solomon is living proof of that. He was among the most gifted, but he was overconfident, unwilling to listen. In the end, he lost his good nature and slipped into mistakes. Solomon was not only a skilled king. His story teaches us a profound lesson. True success does not come solely from intelligence or power. True success comes from faith, kindness, and fairness in every decision. No matter how grand the structures we build, the most important thing is to maintain a righteous heart, to stay loyal to moral values. As the light of Solomon's reign fades, the Temple of Jerusalem still stands proudly in the desert. It is not just a legacy of greatness, it is a timeless reminder. Humility, fairness, and faith are always the most important things. Solomon, a king with unparalleled wisdom and power, yet he lost it all, simply because of arrogance. So is intelligence and power really the key to sustaining success? When faced with the temptation of power, what will you do? Can you hold on to your core values? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, share it with your friends and family to help everyone learn valuable lessons from Solomon's story. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss out on more profound lessons from the legends in the Bible. In the book of Judges, there was a time when Israel had no king, no law, no voice from heaven, only tribes turning against each other, altars stained with regret and chaos. Some judges were chosen by God but chose their own way. They were given a covenant but broke it with their own hands. And as the land grew more divided, one question remained. When no one leads and no one listens, who will stop a nation from destroying itself? The truth will be revealed on LEGO Bible Adventures. For years, the people of Israel lived in fear. Midianite raiders came like swarms, burning crops, stealing animals, and leaving homes in ruins. Then, in the middle of all this, Gideon appeared. He was no mighty warrior, just a man hiding grain from enemy patrols.
The Lord is with you, mighty warrior.
Is this a joke? If God is with us, why is all this happening? Where were the miracles? Where was deliverance?
Go in the strength you have. I am sending you.
Gideon could hardly believe it. Yet he listened and gathered a small group who still dared to hope. One night, Gideon and 300 men crept toward the enemy camp. The Midianites slept below, their tents scattered like shadows. At Gideon's signal, "Attack!" In panic, the enemy soldiers turned on each other, and the camp fell to chaos. After victory, the people shouted Gideon's name.
He saved us. He should be king. All hail Gideon!
At first, Gideon was humble.
I will not be your king. The Lord is king.
But as the cheers grew louder and gold piled high, something in Gideon changed. He gathered their gold and, in secret, melted it into a statue of himself.
A betrayer of God!
Catch these idiots now!
Only one escaped. The other two were captured and punished before the crowd.
Where was your God? It was my hand that saved you.
He's right, though.
But just as Gideon basked in triumph, the escaped man, now disguised as a soldier, drove the blade right into his stomach.
Go to hell.
Later, they mourned for Gideon's death, singing his name, forgetting God as their true savior. Have you ever paid the price for a vow you should never have made? After Gideon's fall, hope faded once more in Israel. The people suffered under the harsh rule of the Ammonites. Villages were raided, fields burned, and families torn apart. In the midst of this confusion, Jephthah returned, a man born to a prostitute, shunned by his brothers and cast out from his home. Forced to live among outsiders, Jephthah grew tough and wise, learning to survive alone. As Israel's troubles deepened, the elders finally swallowed their pride and begged Jephthah to come back and lead them. He agreed, but only if they would truly make him their leader.
No!
When battle approached, Jephthah was brave but anxious.
I'm the leader now!
Before marching out, he made a desperate vow to God.
If the Lord gives me victory, whatever comes out of my house to greet me will be offered to God.
That day, Jephthah led Israel to triumph. The Ammonites were defeated, and the people lifted him high on their shoulders.
Jephthah! Jephthah!
Cheering him as their savior. Israel found hope in a savior and in God once again. But as the cheers faded, an old blind woman moved quietly through the crowd. She leaned close to Jephthah and whispered,
"Be careful, hero. Your greatest victory may become your deepest sorrow."
Are you crazy, you blind woman?
Father!
When he returned home, his only daughter came running out. Suddenly, a red stain began to bloom on her head.
Sweetie, your head.
Father, what's happening to me?
He fell to his knees, shaking her and calling her name, but she did not answer.
I tried to warn you.
Who are you? Please, save my child.
But the woman faded away into the shadows.
No, no, please don't go.
Knowing about Jephthah's tragedy, the people turned against him. Whispers spread from village to village, first blaming Jephthah for the loss of his daughter, then blaming God for allowing such sorrow to happen. No one trusted their leaders, and even fewer trusted heaven. With no one left to follow, the tribes drifted apart. Every village looked only after its own. Darkness crept across the land, and soon the greatest threats no longer came from outside enemies, but from within. One night, a Levite and his concubine traveled through the hills seeking shelter in the town of Gibeah. But kindness was gone from Israel. Only a single old man took them in, locking the door against the world.
Oh, thank you so much.
As the couple slept, a sudden crash shook the house. The door was broken open. Strangers burst inside, grabbing the concubine and dragging her away. The Levite fought desperately, landing a punch on one of the attackers to try and save her. But it was the old man who struck him from behind. Everything went black. When morning came, the Levite awoke in confusion, his head aching. He stumbled to the doorway, only to find his wife lying motionless on the threshold.
No, 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 no!
The Levite stood over her lifeless body, numb with horror. Then grief twisted into rage. He cut her body into 12 pieces, one for each tribe. Bloody parcels, wordless accusations. Look what we have become. Shock turned to fury. Israel swore justice, swore vengeance on Benjamin. But Benjamin would not surrender its own. So the tribes armed, not against foreign enemies, but against their own flesh and blood. The land shook as civil war erupted.
Help me!
The town of Gibeah was destroyed, and the tribe of Benjamin was nearly wiped out. When the fighting ended, all that remained was ruin and silence. Israel was broken. 12 tribes, divided by violence, haunted by guilt. Yet in the darkest time, one man began to rise, a judge unlike any before, set apart by God, destined to confront the nation's despair. As faith crumbled, God planted the seed of deliverance. not in a palace, but in the quiet home of a barren woman.
Huh?
Hello, it's me.
You will bear a son. He will begin to save Israel from its suffering.
Who are you? How can I believe this? I have prayed for years, but God never answered.
Do not be afraid. I am a messenger of the Lord. Your son will be set apart from birth. No razor shall touch his hair, and he will begin the deliverance of Israel. Raise him in faith and hope.
So the child Samson was born, a boy with a destiny that could not be broken. As he grew, Samson's strength astonished everyone. He tore lions apart, broke city gates, and defeated whole armies with his hands. The people cheered, certain their true hero had finally come. But Samson wandered into enemy lands and fell for forbidden women. Among them was Delilah, who coaxed from him the secret of his strength, his hair, a sign of his promise to God.
What have you done, you witch?
As his power vanished, the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, chained him in the temple, and tortured him for their entertainment.
Lord, remember me. Give me strength just one more time.
With a roar, Samson broke free from his chains and launched into battle. For a moment, Samson smiled, believing victory was his. But in that instant, a Philistine soldier rushed behind and drove a blade straight into his heart. Gasping, Samson staggered, blood pouring from the wound. His voice trembled.
I cannot die for nothing. If I fall, then all this evil falls with me.
When the dust settled, Israel was left in silence. Yet as they mourned, they remembered Samson's final act, not as a tale of defeat, but a sacrifice that reignited their hope. They honored him not only for his might, but for giving his life so his people could believe again. So, that was the complete book of Judges. Gideon stood as a hero, but pride pulled him away from what mattered most. Jephthah longed to save his people, but his words brought heartbreak. Again and again, the leaders of Israel stumbled, and hope slipped through their hands. But Samson was different. When all seemed lost, he offered everything, even his life, so that faith could shine again. Through his sacrifice, a new hope was born for Israel. Maybe there have been times in life when you've lost your way like Gideon or Jephthah. Will you make the same mistakes, or will you learn from Judges like Samson and let real faith begin in your heart? If this message has stirred your heart, share your thoughts below and subscribe to Lego Bible Adventures. There are more adventures to come. more stories of failure, faith, and redemption. No matter what happens, we are here for you.